Good morning and welcome to Ellon Academy's virtual assembly on Tuesday the 31st of August 2021. The quote of the week this week is ask yourself if what you are doing today is getting you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. And just like I said at the start of the term, that it's not the first and last days that really count. You will remember the first and last days of anything that you embark upon, but it's all the days in between that really matter in terms of your progress and your growth and your development. But sometimes when you're older, like most of the staff here, you look back on your life and you think, was that really helpful to me when I did that when I was a teenager or I was a child or in my early 20s? And it's really good to think about the kind of things that you do in your life that would be helpful to you for your future. So for example, if you are a person that looks after your health and your well-being, that will absolutely serve you well when you progress into adult life, because the kind of actions that we do when we are young can have a major impact on our health when we're older. For example, if you smoke, it might not have a significant impact on your general health, but if you continue to smoke into adulthood, it will have a significant impact on how you're doing with your general health and your lungs and the things that are related, smoking related type diseases. So that's just one example of what you do now that will have an impact in the future. Also about your school and your studies, the kind of effort and commitment that you give now will absolutely pay dividends. And I had a really great conversation with a young person last week who said that it just was like a penny dropping to them, that they hadn't really tried hard in S1, 2 and 3, and then when they got to S4 things were a bit tougher for them, and it was just a learning point for them, almost like an epiphany, that they thought, I've got to take my learning into my own hands and I've got to take responsibility for it, because if I don't do it now, it will be too late and I won't be able to go on and do the kind of things that I want to do and have the job I want to have. So think about what you do just now, and is that going to help you get to where you want to be in the future? And if the answer is no, then it's an opportunity to rethink and maybe ditch the kind of things that are not helpful to your future self. What will you look back when you're 25? What will you thank your 15-year-old self for that you did to make that life of a 25-year-old a lot better? So as you'll be aware, we've been focusing on high expectations as everyone has returned to school since the summer break. And the first thing that's really made a difference is seeing everyone back in school uniform, and it really sets the tone for a good working environment and positive attitudes to learning, to see everyone looking so smart in their uniforms. There are still one or two pupils who are not fully complying, but we're working with them and their families to make sure that everybody is arriving and looking the same. Punctuality is really important as well, and that's arriving for school on time, and the late gate has been successful in identifying those young people who have struggled to do that. So we're setting in some supports for them, and again working with guidance and with their parents and carers to address late coming issues, but also for all young people to develop good habits for the future. And something else that we have high expectations about is how we treat our school and our environment. And obviously litter is something that we talk about almost every day. We want young people to take responsibility for their own litter. The cleaner's job is for young people, the cleaner's job is not to pick up litter. They're not paid to do that. They're paid to clean the surfaces. So they can't really start doing that job to support us with our COVID mitigations if they have to spend time picking up other people's litter. That's just not fair, and we need them to have all the time available to them so we can do the cleaning at different points during the day to keep the school as safe as we possibly can. So we need young people to play their part in putting their litter in the bin, and we also need you to be respectful of our cleaning team, because they spent a huge amount of time during the summer scraping off bits of chewing gum from underneath chairs and desks, and that's just not acceptable. It's not a nice thing to do or a nice habit to be in. And the simplest thing is to put your gum in the bin or in a tissue. So that would be really helpful if you were to do that. It's not pleasant for somebody else sitting at the desk maybe you've been at, or the seat you've been sitting on, to discover a bit of somebody's discarded gum underneath it. The last thing I want to talk about today in terms of expectations is about the language that I hear round about the school. So obviously my office is in a main thoroughfare of the school, and there's daily traffic of young people going back and forth. And when I hear young people in groups talking together, it's always great to hear laughter and chatter, but interspersed among that chatter are many, many inappropriate words and phrases. Now, I was saying to one young person this week that I was 7 weeks on holiday away from the school, and I never heard any of these inappropriate phrases at all during that time. And I don't expect to come into Ellon Academy and hear this sort of language. For some young people, it's just day-to-day chatter, and it's the words and terms and phrases that some young people use when they're talking to each other, but it's not acceptable in public and social spaces. Young people, I'm no fool to think that they don't swear. Many young people do, but it's knowing when the time and place and when it is appropriate. And school is certainly not an appropriate place to be talking in this way to each other, and obviously on the very, very rare occasion where a young person uses inappropriate language when talking to a member of staff. So that's part of our agenda of high expectations. When you're in the community, when you're on school transport, it does not give a good impression of Ellon Academy young people or your families if you are heard to be talking sometimes in disgusting and inappropriate ways. I will use that term because it's a strong term, but we feel strongly about this. It certainly does not look good or sound good for you to be in a school uniform representing Ellon Academy to be talking in that way. So I will be expecting to hear less or none of that sort of language as I move around the school. So I must mention, over the past couple of weeks since we've returned to school, COVID-19 cases are increasing, and we've had a number associated with Ellon Academy. A number of young people sadly have been infected, and we really wish them well and their families well, and we send our best wishes for a full recovery to them. It makes it all the more important that we keep ourselves safe when we're in and out of school. And I'm very aware that the restrictions within the community are less than they are in schools, but we are doing everything we possibly can with thorough cleaning and continuing to wear face coverings and to sanitize and to keep our regime of cleaning our desks, chairs and equipment, keeping windows open for ventilation as well. So never more has it been so important with the backdrop of increasing cases locally. So we need everybody to play their part and keep safe. Some young people take it very seriously and do their very best to keep themselves safe, and others. But some other young people are still in the sort of zone of thinking it's a bit funny and not taking it that seriously. So as we see members of our own community contracting COVID, we hope that all young people will take this seriously and do what they need to do to keep safe. Lastly, we've had lots of inspirational stories coming from the Tokyo Paralympics just now, and I've chosen just one of them, Maisie Summers Newton, who has she's smashed a record to winning gold, and it's her second gold actually, but she's just won 100 meters breaststroke, and she's smashed her own record. She suffers from achondroplasia, which is a birth defect, that affects bone growth when babies are born, and it can change the growth and function of limbs, arms and legs, and it affects the cartilage, and the arms and legs don't turn into bone as they should do with babies that are born without this condition. So she's quite inspirational that she manages to train and get in the pool and achieve as much as she has. She's only 19, but she is an absolute inspiration, as are so many of the other international Paralympians that we see on our screens just now. So thank you again for listening, and we will talk again next week.